Hi all. In today's video, we're going to look at the first of our two elements of health as part of the development health topic. Now today, we're going to spend some time looking at malaria. Now, with the malaria case study, we look at three main areas. What are the causes of the disease? What impacts does the disease have? And how is the disease managed? So let's get straight into it and start thinking about the causes of malaria. Now, first thing I want to show you here is we've got a map showing you areas of malarial risk. And you should hopefully notice straight away that areas of risk are in the tropics or between the tropics. And the big reason for this is because the cause of malaria is the female Anopheles mosquito. Now, it's really important that we get that term down because if we move away from saying it's the female Anopheles mosquito, we're not being accurate because that's the only mosquito that spreads the malarial parasite. And if we vary from that, certainly in exam answers, or you're not going to see credit for it. So, what is the life cycle of the female Anopheles mosquito, and how does it marry up with the spread of malaria? So, we start up here. We've got the mosquito lays eggs in stagnant water. These eggs then hatch, and we've got a reality that mosquitoes need to feed on blood to survive. So your female mosquito goes and it sucks blood from somebody who's already infected with malaria, and that makes them a vector. The malarial parasites develop within the mosquito because the mosquito itself isn't vulnerable to the parasite. The mosquito then goes, it bites someone else, and that transfers the parasite into that person. The parasites enter the human bloodstream, they attack the liver, they mature and they reproduce, and then the parasites are released into the bloodstream. And then this whole process, that arrow's facing the wrong way, this whole process then continues and you've got a loop. And this then means that you have got kind of a never-ending supply of malaria parasites for mosquitoes to spread amongst the human population. Now, when we think about this, we think, right, physical causes. What are, a list, a key run of things that cause this disease to spread? So first, the female Anopheles mosquito that I've already mentioned. We need to have stagnant water for the mosquito to breed in. So anything from go from a muddy boot print on the ground up to lakes. We need temperatures of between 15 and 40 degrees Celsius because if we don't have that, the mosquito won't thrive, it won't survive. We need shade for the mosquito to rest in. After mosquitoes eat, they fly to shaded areas to digest the blood meal they've just taken. We need moderate to high rainfall. Again, it helps to create these areas of stagnant water. We need a humidity level of over 60%, and we need an altitude of below 3,000 metres. And the altitude marries up with the temperatures. What are some of the human causes? High population density. Lots of people, small physical area, means that the mosquito can bite person to person to person to person, and it's going to spread this disease really rapidly. Stagnant water that we create. So I mentioned, boot prints and up, paddy fields. In Southeast Asia, rice is the dominant crop that's grown, and you grow it in paddy fields. And the method you use to grow it in a paddy field is you flood the field, and you need that water to stay reasonably stagnant because you need a set level of water in the field for the rice crop to grow. That creates a huge amount of stagnant water that's perfect for mosquitoes to thrive in. Urbanisation creates shade. You have lots of buildings, you have lots of different places for the mosquito to rest in. Now, what are the impacts of malaria? What does it do to people, to communities, etc.? So first, to think about individuals. Literally the symptoms, fever, shivering, being anemic, your spleen gets enlarged. If you are already ill through something like malnutrition, it can be fatal if your immune system's already been compromised. An average is 8 to 10 days of work lost per attack of malaria. If you are in a malarial area, the overall average income is 60% lower when you compare it to a non-malarial area. And when you've got the rainy season, it's bear in mind we're talking about tropical areas, so you tend to have two seasons, dry and wet. In the rainy season, this is where you've got the peak agricultural workload happening. That means people are outside. It's very often very hot. They're doing manual work, so people tend not to remain covered up as well. and that means that your risk of infection is extremely high. What about communities? How does it affect these areas? Well, if you are looking at an area that is high in agriculture, you're not being as productive as you otherwise might be. As such, the agriculture that you are doing is going to focus on subsistence cropping, and that means you are growing food for you to eat so you don't starve. You are not going for cash crops, you're not trying to earn money out of it, because again, if you get an attack of malaria during the harvest season, you're not going to be able to harvest, you're not going to be able to make money, you're not going to be able to eat. Chronic absenteeism in school children is also a really, really big one, and that obviously has a huge impact on the level of education that young people get, and as such, the level of work that they can go on and do in future. In terms of national level impacts, the loss of income due to illness is huge. GDP gets reduced by 1 to 3% a year. You're talking about up to half of all hospital admissions are related to malaria, and about 40% of all public health expenditure in nations that have malaria are related to malaria. So that is a huge amount that is they need to be paid for. And it's money that could be paid on other things or could be deployed in other areas to help drive development in these nations. Now, last, management. How do we deal with malaria? What can we do about it? Now, this the slides that are coming, guys, it is meant to be formatted as one big table. You obviously will get them, but you might want to kind of juggle the formatting slightly. Now, first method, deal with the mosquito. Drain the breeding sites. Fill in areas that it would use to plant its eggs. And you can also do this by planting eucalyptus leaves because they take up a huge amount of water. They're very, very thirsty trees. Big advantage, it stops the mosquito breeding. However, you try and fill in every puddle in the world ever. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult. And if you're in an area where canals are used, you need to flush them out every 5 to 7 days. And if you're talking about areas that are arid or semi-arid, the notion of using clean water to do this is absolutely insane because that water has value. You can't just waste it by flushing out canals. Other methods, you introduce natural enemies to the mosquito. Now this can be spores that block up its ability to breathe. You can have carp, which literally just eat the mosquito larvae in the water. Mustard seeds, if you spread mustard seeds on areas of water where the mosquito has laid its eggs, they stick onto the larvae and drown them. Egg whites do much the same thing, where they suffocate the larvae, and there are various breeds of wasp that will also attack the larvae and eat them. Now, this is natural. If you use the carp version, you get to eat the carp when it's done, and carp will populate on their own. You don't need to manage that. And as a rule, there's not a huge risk to human health in any of these methods. It's wasteful, however, when you are looking at taking potential food sources and like egg white and spreading them over big areas of water. It's expensive and it's always introducing new animals, even something like carp, into an area is always risky because you are adding a new species into an environment and you don't necessarily know how that environment will cope with this addition. Other ones, moving on, we could go for the quote-unquote nuclear option and use DDT. And this is still done in some places, even though it's been banned. The good thing about DDT is it's really easy to spread it and it's really, really cheap. It is horrendous, however, for the environment. It does pose a direct risk to human health through bioaccumulation. You know what I mean? The mosquito eats a tiny, tiny bit of DDT, and then it gets eaten by something else that eats 50 mosquitoes, so it gets 50 amounts of the DDT, and so on, and it can accumulate into the human diet. It's also really, really bad for birds and various animals, and it does kill things off. Also, we've got evidence of mosquitoes becoming resistant to it as well, so it really makes you question how valid a method it is. Another version of a pesticide is malathion, which is less risky than DDT, which is its big thing. It's not banned. The downside is it's expensive, and we're talking about nations that don't have huge budgets. You need to reapply it really frequently, and it stinks. It doesn't smell nice, which does put people off using it. One of the most common methods that you see globally is provide people with bed nets, insecticide-treated bed nets, I should add. And they last up to a year. In Tanzania, it reduced the incident rate of malaria by up to 35%. Problem again, expensive. You know, I mean, it costs money to provide the nets, it costs money to treat them. Some nations, I say Ethiopia as an example, tax them. So they are expensive things. And if you're talking about areas where poverty is as real an issue as it is in some of these areas, it puts people off using them. Another one, BTI bacteria can be grown in coconuts. Now, this is just a type of bacteria you can grow in coconuts. You then throw the coconut into areas where you have the larvae growing, and it kills them. It destroys their stomach lining. Now, it's cheap, it's environmentally friendly. In a lot of these places, you do actually have access to a lot of coconuts, and it lasts a reasonable amount of time. The big downside is you need coconuts, but as we said, you tend to have access to them, but it only works in large bodies of water. You can't throw a coconut into a puddle and hope you'll get the same effect. It just doesn't work that way. Now, one of the last ones that we talk about is actually medicating against this, the use of anti-malarial drugs. And I've put three kind of common levels, if you will, of anti-malarial drug. You know, starting at the bottom, you've got chloroquine. It's really, really cheap. It's really, really easy to use it. But mosquitoes are developing a resistance to it, so it's not as effective as it used to be. You've then got Larium. Now, Larium is more powerful, however, it has side effects, and we are looking at mosquitoes developing a resistance to this drug as well. And the last one I've got here is Malarone. Now, Malarone is much more effective. It doesn't have as many side effects, but that problem that keeps cropping up, money. It's expensive. Trying to get that applied to different areas where you don't have finance to do so is a major, major issue. We've got the last couple which are newer. So now, I am not going to try and pronounce the name of the first one because I would make a complete meal of it, but it's a drug that's been developed from Chinese herbal medicines. It's also called artemisinin, which is the brand name, if you will. Good news, it is fast acting. So far, mosquitoes aren't resistant to it, and it's easy to administer. However, back to the same point with Malarone, extremely expensive. Finances are an issue here, and if you can't afford it, it limits how effective the treatment can be. Now, that's going to wrap up malaria. In the next video, we're going to talk about, in the final video, in our development health series, we're going to be looking at primary healthcare. And until then, I will see you guys later.